when I first started running, working in London, working all the hours, drinking all the beer and everything else that comes with it, mate. And my brother sort of pulled me out and he's like, what the fuck are you doing? I was like, I'm good, mate. I'm earning good money. I'm, in London. And it's like the dream of many people. You get to take clients out for drinks on a daily basis and it feels really good. And my brother's like, mate, I've signed you up to a half marathon and it's about 4.5 weeks away. I was like, okay. At the time, I think I was about 98, 99 kg. I remember that day, put on your shoes, strap up. I think I got to the end of the road. I was fucked. I was like, mate, this is tough. But yeah, so 4 weeks later, done a half marathon. Didn't really do much for me. So then we signed up to London Marathon. I got a place in that, my brother didn't. So he was like, let's go and do Manchester instead. But that was 2 weeks before. So we did Manchester Marathon, then 2 weeks later did London Marathon. That was my first sort of endurance entry, mate.
When you were entering these races, what was going on in your head? Like, why were you doing it?
I don't really know. Like, there's a lot of like pressure. I guess it comes back to this from. So, work in sales, you're monitored daily by what you do, your output. Like, everything is monitored. Your calls are recorded. Your dials. Your like everything. I don't know that there's another job in the world where absolutely everything you do, you're accountable to a number. So you're sort of used to being under that pressure, and then you start running, and actually, you're ridiculously free when you're running, mate. Yeah. And it was a release of pressure. There wasn't like, I don't care, like you do a half marathon or a marathon. That's a pretty cool way of switching off. And I think other people go and do yoga right in the morning, or they meditate. If I get up at 5:30 in the morning and see the sunrise whilst running, that for me is meditation. I think so. It released a lot of the pressure from work, mate.
It's nuts what you've just said though, right? Because your background and your, I'm going to call it an obsession, is numbers, which inadvertently or directly create an insane amount of pressure. For a lot of people, sport is performance, is also numbers. Yep. Even more so due to things like Strava. In endurance sports, numbers become even more prevalent. Yeah. And maybe you've got some thoughts on this because you're in an endurance community and you've been around endurance communities for a long time, but we generally see people that are insanely numbers driven in their professional lives then become like that same addiction goes into endurance sports, but you've gone completely the other way. You've found this incredible amount of freedom despite entering races that are you against the clock.
If you put performance goals on, sure, it's you against the clock, but I think a lot of it's just you against you. I think the only race I've raced where it felt like a performance goal was the Dubai Marathon. Outside of that, mate, it was, let's see what we can do. I had no time goal for Jordan. I had no expectations of beating anyone, or like if I completed that, for me was awesome. So yeah, it depends what way you look at it, right? If someone rocks up to you and is like, I want to run a sub-3 marathon, sure, you've got to look at the number. But if someone comes to you and goes, I want to complete a marathon, that's different. They'll probably still get sucked into Strava and everything like that, mate. But
how have you separated it when your whole life has been around numbers?
Yeah, I don't think we definitely don't always do it, right? When you're on training peaks and you're ticking that off and you've got a race, you're 3 months out, you better be hitting those numbers. But I think you strip it all back and remember why you're doing what you're doing. Yeah. If I wake up in the morning, I've got a session to hit and I've got to hit certain numbers, sure. But if I lose enjoyment doing that, then I've got pressure at work. I've got pressure running to numbers. That's no longer a fun place to be.
So if you could wrap up why you started, it just seemed like a good idea.
Yeah, just be a bit less shit at life, mate. Outside of work, really. Like you can be can you be high performing at work and shit outside? Probably not. Not over a long period of time. Right? I was doing well at work. would I have been able to sustain that for the next 5-10 years? Probably not, without something outside of it, mate.
I actually think you can. I think you've come up with something absolutely genius, mate. I think I see a lot of people that are insane at work, but insanely shit outside of work.
Yeah.
And that's why they end up working so much.
Yeah.
And they don't want to go home because they're shit at their home life.
Yeah.
They don't want to train because they're shit at training.
Yeah.
So what they end up doing is working 10 hours.
I'm really good at this bit.
They're really good at that bit. Yeah.